Global. Excellent. Welcome, everyone. All right, so I'm super excited to have everyone here today for the first masterclass that I'll actually be presenting as your host and founder, so it's very exciting. All right, so let's get into it. So welcome today to the 10 steps to planning a virtual meeting. I'm Mahogany Jones. I'm owner of Event Specialists, and I've been planning events for over 16 years. And for the last 8 years or so, I've been asked to produce hybrid meetings for events for clients and associations. Through the support of friends in the industry and not being afraid to get it right, I've been continuing to learn everything I need to know about hybrid and virtual events. I was also one of the first Canadians to receive the Digital Event Strategist Certificate back in 2014. So I'm also the founder of the Eventpreneur Club, which is a community of event industry entrepreneurs who want to build, market, and grow a profitable business. So it's a community where we share experiences without judgment, and we help each other to grow both personally and professionally. Most recently, I've joined the sales team at the Halifax Convention Center. And for all of you who will be tweeting about today's session, don't hesitate to use the hashtag Eventpreneur so that we can find your comments and make sure that I answer all of your questions. So what do we hope to accomplish today? I want to make sure that we understand the process for building your own hybrid or virtual event plan. And you'll understand a little bit later why I still say hybrid when this is a session about virtual. We're going to learn how to set a good foundation for a virtual event that both complements and extends our live event experience. And then we're going to learn how to set the framework for measuring success. So, first polling question. How much experience do you have planning virtual or hybrid meetings? I'd like you to type 1 if you have no experience, 2, less than a year, 3, 1 to 3 years, and then 4 for more than 3 years. Oh, it looks like we have a lot of no experience. Keith, you look like you're winning so far with more than 3 years. Kathleen and Nicole, close seconds. Excellent. Over a decade. Welcome, Disa. All right, we're going to start to age ourselves. Excellent. And if I were to ask the same question and say, how much experience do you have planning only virtual meetings, would your answers stay the same? I know for myself, to be fully transparent, 100% virtual was not truly in my was not truly the wheelhouse that I was hired for. A lot of the events that I produced were for hybrid events, so we had an in-person and an online experience. And now the question of going 100% virtual is different. Exactly. Looks like we're all on the same page. Now, my next question, is there a difference between a virtual and a hybrid event? I think I already gave that answer away. But you can say 1 for yes, 2 for no, or 3 for unsure. Definitely yes. So in this day and age of being asked of what we can produce for our clients or produce for our employers, we're looking at a few different things. A lot of times we're asked to produce a virtual meeting or a virtual conference, which in reality is actually a webinar that a lot of people are asking for, which is a one-way communication or something similar to the platform that you're on today. We're also asked to live stream and then also asked to video conference. So to ensure we're all speaking the same language today, so here's how I like to look at virtual events and sort of use this as a guide for my definition. When I look at a virtual event, I like to look at it in 3 different ways. So you can either have a virtual attendee viewing from their home office or from their home, like we are today, and where we have one speaker speaking out to the audience. We also have a situation where the speakers are in a room or a production studio with a camera, but no physical audience. So it's more of a produced virtual event that's 100% online, but still allows for some connectivity. And then number 3, we have a virtual attendee is viewing the presentation and the speaker without true interaction. We could be watching a recording of a speaker, or we could even be on a platform like this that doesn't allow chat or Q&A. And when it comes to a hybrid event, and the reason I do still talk about hybrid is that I do believe that we are going to go into an era where hybrid will become the new norm, and we'll be enhancing live events with our online experience, but still producing both. So in its purest form, a hybrid event is the marriage of a live in-person event and a virtual audience. And there are 3 different types of hybrid events. We have those that connect a remote office location to main event. We have including remote speakers that we will start to see a little bit more, and also connecting multiple sites to a broadcast studio. So a lot of times we're starting to see more cross-country, cross-company locations that are coming together to do a certain meeting. So we, as meeting planners, we're all natural collaborators, or at the very least, I want to say control freaks, who are always ready to take on one more thing. To be fair, we won't go in depth into the technical requirements on today's webinar, but I am here to arm you with basic understanding of the tasks it takes to produce a virtual meeting. So I'm going to arm you with the knowledge needed to ensure that there is no overwhelm when we as planners are continue to ask for these last-minute hybrid and virtual event solutions. And I don't want us to be afraid. So why was the need for virtual events or hybrid options even coming to fruition? Is it the fear of FOMO, a fear of missing out? I know a lot of times we had these discussions for hybrid because we wanted to keep up with the competitors. And then hybrid actually came out of budget cuts and travel cuts that we were starting to see. And we were looking for ways to still maximize that revenue stream and opportunity by offering a virtual option. Sometimes it's a senior management or board direction. They've made that decision. They read a study that they heard someone is able to make more revenue or generate more revenue by hosting a hybrid event, so that they've chosen to do so. And also national reach. We see that a lot more with national organizations or even companies that are now allowing remote workers, and they're working across the country, so they want to bring everyone together. Now, new requirements that I'm starting to see and why we're actually being pushed to go virtual is that we want to save our events. We don't want to lose the momentum that we've built over the years by producing exceptional experiences. We want to maintain our brand awareness. We also want to enhance the experience by offering on-demand sessions. We want to create new revenue streams, which is why we're now going virtual. And you want to add value for physical sponsors by allowing digital exposure now that we can't host our events in person or as they slowly start to open. To be completely honest, I actually view this as a huge opportunity for us as planners in the industry. Being forced to go virtual and being forced to rethink our events has allowed us to reimagine the experience we want to create for our attendees. It's allowed us to create new revenue streams that we may not have thought of before. Having a virtual event and virtual happy hours and all of those things are new engagement strategies that we're even able to try. We're able to create on-demand libraries when we were often told we don't have budget to record content. We don't have the bandwidth to be able to create a digital library or an asset library for our attendees. Now, all of these things seem to be at our fingertips and giving us even more opportunity. And offer real-time events, which were never considered in the past. I mean, how many of us are now able to jump on a live webinar with a speaker that we didn't have access to before to do on-demand updates? How many more town hall meetings are we seeing at our different companies where our organizations are even more transparent with what's happening? We're allowed to respond and do things a lot more to our music to your ears. We're able to respond more in real time, which is making it, in my opinion, a lot better for us as planners, and to really reinforce our roles and reclaim our authority status as the leaders and the ones who understand what is happening and the ones who are going to help lead the charge. So we're living in this digital era where we're constantly being told to adapt to new technologies, but it's not for every situation. Technology is definitely getting better, but we still need that very important element, and that's human interaction. And that's definitely changing, but we need to be mindful of our audience. I honestly don't believe that virtual will replace live events, but it will definitely be a consideration factor. And adding that human interaction, we're really starting to see is capable, and we are able to do so virtually. I mean, how many Zoom meetings are we on? We are starting to experience a little Zoom fatigue, but to be fair, we are honestly starting to see that we can still have that interaction. We can still feel that we're meeting one-on-one with these private breakout rooms and these new styles of hangouts and meetups and all of these new apps that are coming out for us to connect with each other. It's allowing us to really rethink what human interaction can look like. Now, I'm a firm believer that every event should be an opportunity to create buzz about your brand or your organization. It's an opportunity to showcase what you do well. And this could be something both internally or externally. And in this era of technology, we need to remember, what is the ROE? What is the return on experience? What's in it for me? In my opinion, when it will enhance what you're already doing well, and when your team is ready, is the best time to go virtual. Now, I'm not saying we don't respond right away, because we are in a time where we are forced to respond a lot faster than we normally would. But it's giving us a chance to at least look at what we do well, reconsider what we do well and what we offer. I mean, are we offering great keynotes? Are we really offering the best quality content that we could be for our audience? What about the format that we're doing? Do we absolutely have to have those trade show booths? Is that adding value to the event or the experience? This is giving us an opportunity to really rethink. So let's get into it. How do we actually produce a hybrid event or a virtual event that keeps us all smiling like the people in the picture? Let's start with step one. Start with your business goals and objectives, or your event objectives. The same is for the in-person event. The planning must begin with your mission and or objectives. So what is the goal of your event? Are you a national association looking to expand your reach to members who could not otherwise attend? Are you looking at offering a new experience to your attendees? Really look at the objectives and the mission you were trying to create originally with your in-person event, and define what those objectives look like now. This is a chance to, again, reimagine what this experience could look like. Reimagine those objectives and how we can meet them. Are you looking to add revenue? Are you looking to offer those additional continuing education units that we have to actually offer? I mean, that's a valid objective. We have to offer this content, and we have to figure it out. And what other goals are you looking to achieve? And the same can be said for increasing brand awareness. Do you want to be seen as a leader in your industry? Are you looking to capture content of your event so that you can sell it later or give it as a member benefit? And then, do the events you produce have identified objectives? I want you guys to think about some of the events that you're producing right now. If your events actually have identified objectives, go ahead and put a 1 in the chat. If your events do not have an objective, go ahead and put a 0 in the chat. And there is no shame in that, because I have been on many teams with no identified objective. We were producing events because we have always done it that way. Exactly. I appreciate your honesty, Chloe. Nothing to be ashamed of. It's really just a conversation to understand where we're coming from when it comes to setting our objectives. It is hard sometimes to ask the boss to think. And that brings us to step 2. Again, like I said before, I'm going to start to sound like a broken wheel. Look at what you already do well and decide on what you would like to make available to the virtual audience. Especially if this is your very first virtual event, you don't have to jump into producing 3 days of content with multiple breakout rooms and trade shows and all of the above. I'd like you to step back and really think about what it is you want to put out into the world. We understand that the event in person had all of those elements, but they may not translate directly online. Start with what you're doing well. And really consider, will you stream the entire conference? Will you keep all of the sessions that you had originally outlined? Or will you look at only sharing general sessions and educational workshops? And when it comes to workshops, will you continue to offer that? Is that something that you normally do well and have an exceptional facilitator to take your attendees through those things? Again, like I said, does the trade show remain part of the experience that you're looking to create? Is your conference well known for high-end keynote speakers that you bring in? Why not stream those? Use that as your framework for the event. Do you have someone at the event who has star power that can attract an expanded audience? Use this time to leverage the global reach that we have. I mean, we are in a noisy marketplace. I won't lie about that. And there are so many conferences and events being promoted. But this also gives a chance for others to experience different events that they wouldn't normally go to. And just like your on-site audience will pay a fee to see a celebrity or that influencer in the industry, so will the virtual audience. And we will talk about payment a little later, but I like to remind everyone that when we're producing virtual events, I understand it has been said, or we see it somewhere, that virtual should be free, but that is not always the case. I want you to really think about what you do well and really hone in on that value, because that can translate into a fee for service or a fee for event. And again, like I say, if it's your first virtual event, I do recommend you start small. And if you're being pushed to do all of the things, I recommend you reach out to your colleagues. Now more than ever, we're all in the same boat. Someone else's expertise may be exactly what your team needs. So what you do well may be a benefit to one of your colleagues, and you're able to share that knowledge between you and use that as your leverage. I know when I was starting in planning hybrid events more so than virtual, my best friends were the AV guys because they knew the technology and they weren't afraid to say, you know what, Mahogany, that doesn't work, or this does work, or that's a nice to have, but it doesn't actually translate online. Use this time to ask your colleagues. I mean, we're all working from home. We all have time to answer questions and to chat to each other, and really use this to leverage your expertise. If you're an expert in content development, that is a great person to marry with somebody who is an expert at logistics or an expert at technology and AV. Having that collaborative effort, even if we don't work for the same companies, is a gift to ourselves and our sanity, and also to the companies that we represent or that we work for. And bringing us to step 3. Working with your teams, we're going to adapt the agenda to either suit both audiences for those who are currently now planning for hybrids in the fall, or you're going to look at your in-person agenda and we're going to look at how we can adapt that to a virtual audience. And agenda considerations include things like timing of your event. So what are the time zones your attendees are tuning in from? Also think of your speakers. What are the time zones that you were originally planning on going live? If you keep your event timelines to be the same, and you also have, or the time zones rather, and your speakers are flying in from different time zones normally, be considerate that now they will be coming in from their own time zone. And that may be something to consider in changing whether or not you have to worry about moving them to the top of the order or to the bottom of the order, to be mindful of their times. One of the other most important things when dealing with a virtual event is to review the script and itemize exactly what you want to see when online. One of my biggest tips that I always say, and I like to recommend, is we don't want dead air online. We don't want to leave it up to chance where our attendees can roam off, or they can put it behind the screen where this becomes something in the back of their mind versus at the forefront. We want to keep them engaged. But we don't want to increase that with background noise. I'm not saying it's as simple as music. Sometimes it can be, but why not get creative with this agenda? And we can do a lot more things to make it fun when we're doing that. It's a chance to really surprise and delight our audience. What can we do during the break that would make it fun? What can we do to enhance that experience? One of the events I was working on most recently, we looked at adding a fun lunchtime element. So what can we do over the lunch break to entice them to stay? So in one particular case, we're going to invite one of the keynote speakers to do a private lunch, which normally we wouldn't have access to. And we'll have them do a private conversation in a breakout room. And we'll send vouchers for the attendees to be able to grab their lunch and have it delivered. And now we've created this really fun experience that we can also charge for and also surprise and delight in the agenda. And number 4, we're going to look at the actual presentation format. Will your speakers be using PowerPoint? Now we say that PowerPoint is super well done for a virtual and hybrid presentation. You want to make sure it's done easily digestible and way to understand. And will they be using videos? Videos and sound is something that we really have to be mindful, especially in a virtual event, to make sure that you can hear the audio. If I had audio in today's presentation, I would have to make sure that it's embedded in a way that you can hear the sound as well as see the presentation. Are they using Prezi? I mean, I thought Prezi had died probably 5 years ago, but Prezi is back in full force with even new ways to engage your audience. It's a super cool tool that can actually be done and used for overlays and really enhance your video quality to make it look fun. But it is an extra element that we need to be mindful as producers, and your tech team would also need to be mindful of, to make sure that they're able to render fast enough so that the video can project like it is. And the name is Prezi, Prezi. I would recommend that you make sure you download Prezi when you're using a Prezi so that it's not 100% online in case it goes down, because we know what that could look like. And what elements will be included in these presentations? So what types of things are the must-haves? Do you have to have polling? Do you have to have live Q&A? Does it need to be delivered in that sense? Do you need both your in-person and your online audience to answer once it gets to that point where you're at a hybrid event? And then how will you accommodate those needs? I mean, working really closely with your tech partners, make sure that we understand all the nuances of those presentations and of the quality that you would like to give. Exactly. Making sure that we have good quality headphones and microphones. Is it separate line or plugged into the computer? Like all of those different things. I know for me, I have everything outside of my regular laptop with ancillary devices coming in, an external camera, an external microphone, and all of those types of things. And I also want to say, really talk about the presentation outline with your speakers, because we've had speakers who are great in person, but get camera shy when they realize other people are watching online. I mean, this is one of my favorite stories to tell. For those of you who are familiar with me, There was once a training session that we had a wonderful facilitator who did all of this company's in-person training. And what they have done was translate it into a virtual platform. So they were pre-recording the sessions and running them simu-live. So they were pre-recording for their audience. And they had this facilitator come in to teach online to the students so that they could record it for their library. And the speaker froze. I shouldn't laugh because I'm speaking to an empty camera, looking at a chat. But this poor speaker felt like they were, in their words, I was not prepared to be Oprah today. And they froze during that presentation, and they were not able to do a lot of the things that they had anticipated doing. And we ultimately had to get a different facilitator to be able to deliver that content. And that actually brings me to our next point, speaker training. It is important to let your speakers know from the very beginning how they will be reacting and how they will be recreating the content and delivering it. You want to give them as much information as possible. This is the regular details that you would give about the audience, their engagement style. Do they like to chat? All of those types of things. But now we have the added element of making sure they're comfortable with the platform. So if you give them a script that gives them different ideas to make sure that they're welcoming their online audience, sometimes we like to recommend that they put a smiley face on the camera so that they remember to smile. We encourage them to stand up like I am today because it makes it easier to interact and to move and to feel as though you're presenting to an audience. Give them all those types of information, but also work with them. What platform will you be using? Allow them to really sit on that training. Walk through the webinar or walk through the platform learning with them for what they need to know. They don't need to know that there's a recording happening on the sideline, that you're streaming out to another platform, those types of things. But what is helpful to them is to know, where does my camera set up? How much of my camera is seen? How much of my slides are seen? What gets cut off? What doesn't get cut off? And also, where are the questions coming from? Will somebody be moderating the questions and actually vocalize those questions to the speaker while they're giving the presentation? That is very important because not always can they see the chat function, especially if you're using Zoom to deliver your content. A lot of times when you go full screen, the speakers are not able to go back and find the chat. So having somebody vocalize those questions will definitely help. And yes, this session will be recorded for viewing later. And you want prompts again to remind them with where they are within the broadcast zone. Like I said, where they're going to need to stand. If you have a wanderer, for example, or somebody who likes to be extremely animated normally in their in-person delivery, I like to work a little extra with them to make sure that they understand the parameters of their camera window. And again, we always tell them the same. Avoid the black, the gray, and the white, even though I have white on today, so that they don't blend into the surroundings. Just little tips like that. And also keep it simple but vibrant. Again, to follow my own advice, I like to recommend jewel tones as a color choice because it helps stand out and make the camera and the video vibrant without overpowering. And we want to avoid the shiny things that can bling through the camera. So no sequins. Number 6, this is probably one of the most overwhelming steps, and it's actually the first question that we get most often. And I like to recommend that technology is not the first question. We do not need to choose the platform before we decide what the experience and the objective should look like. And we don't have to be experts in technology. We need to know who to defer the questions to and kind of what questions to ask. But do a test run with your platforms so that you can see what the attendees will see. You want to understand that A lot of the platforms, I mean, we're using live webinar today that can also stream to Facebook, but to be mindful that there is a delay. There's about a 7-second delay in the delivery and the transfer of this video to the audience. So be mindful of those things. And there are so many platforms to choose from. Before I even look at a platform, I do like to recommend that you go through a list and decide what are your must-haves. You must have video for all participants. We must have chat function for all the participants. We must have the ability to do one-on-one, things like that. What are your must-haves and your non-negotiables? What are your nice-to-haves? I'd like to have an exhibit hall for these attendees. I would like to have sponsored booths for different things. So really start to think of what this experience could look like. I mean, most recently, my latest question has been, can I have simultaneous video and sound be delivered throughout the experience so that when we have music playing or a DJ coming on, their music can be played in the background of mine? The shout out to FMAV. So there are a few different options when we're looking at what platforms we can use. And this really is only the tip of the iceberg, what is on these slides. I personally like to stay with the tried and trues. Start with your AV partner, work with, I know sometimes it's a taboo to say, but I like to say the app providers, because a lot of times they are already prepared to help you gamify and make your experience make your event an experience. So they're already in that mindset. The only thing I would be cautious of and to be mindful of is that they may not be as forthcoming or understanding of flow of an event. So they may not understand the flow of how you go from a session to a networking event or how that could look. So some of the platforms that I like to consider would be your social media options. To be honest with you, social media, I feel, is probably your most forgiving, and that they're not expecting, we'll say, TV production quality. They're a little bit easier to understand. So if we look at Facebook, YouTube, I mean, Twitch is fast and furious coming to the top. LinkedIn Live, for those who are fortunate to be chosen to be able to go live on LinkedIn. I put YouTube twice, so clearly I guess that was important to me. And then also webcasting options. And we'll call it webcasting / video conferencing. Or collaboration tools, as some people like to call it. In collaboration in the sense that you are able to chat, whiteboard, and things like that. So we have platforms like GoToMeeting, Zoom Meetings, Google Meet, On24, WebEx. And then we have our live streaming partners and those who have their own platforms like Sonic Foundry, Livestream, which is actually a Vimeo product. You can use Livestream. I say PSAV and FMAV because my very first event actually was a collaboration with FMAV and Basil, which was a long time ago, but it was an opportunity for us to bring together different technologies and really wow this certain client. And then we have our conference and trade show platforms. We have vFairs, Pathable, Intrado, formerly Inexpo, EVI Events. I know there's a new platform that is really making waves called InEvent. I want to say InEvent is also in the chat, so you can talk to them. There's also Hubulo, which is another new platform that we're starting to see make waves. And then again, like I said, our app providers who have pivoted and added a virtual event module. And that would be Feedloop, Meetings Play, Socio, Snapcard. I also want to say EventMobi. EventMobi has always been a leader in our space, and they're also great to work with in Canadian. And that brings us to step 7. We want to mitigate risk. So once you've reviewed the technology, sometimes you find out, and that's right, Huva. I actually just re-looked at them, and Event Farm, who I forgot in the in the transition. Lots of great platforms. So once you've reviewed the technology, sometimes you find out that it's not ideal for streaming. I mean, if we actually looked at the third week of March, as your event week and you went live on Zoom, you most likely were not able to have all of your attendees log in. You were not able to have all of your content be shared. A lot of those things happened because of the overload on the technologies. I mean, I say mitigate risk in the sense where you need to be, I shouldn't say need because you don't have to do anything. Consider being flexible. For example, if you want to bring in a remote speaker and they have bad internet, why don't we consider pre-recording that content? I understand that it's almost taboo right now to say pre-record anything because then you're not being authentic and you're not delivering on what you're expecting to do. But to be fair, you dictate how the experience is received by your audience. So if your content is delivered and it is pre-recorded, invite your speakers to be in the chat. Allow them to interact with the audience as though they are delivering the presentation. It allows you to mitigate any risk that the content will not be delivered to your expectations. It also allows you to add that extra element to those videos and really make sure that the content delivery is succinct to what you're expecting it to be. And it also allows you to not rely on flaky internet. I mean, the kids are home. All of your neighbors are home. So it is making it a little difficult on the internet connections. And then, of course, we always recommend that you be hardwired. I mean, I'm hardwired today, not on Wi-Fi when delivering a presentation. And number 8, assemble your on-site dream team. I know I said on-site, and I say on-site because I do believe that you are on-site even when it's a virtual event experience. In an ideal world, every event team has a member assigned to each function. And that could be registration, audio, visual, food and beverage monitoring. Same applies to your virtual event. Having a virtual MC online, I do feel like is one of your hidden secrets to having a concierge to help make sure everything goes according to plan. So leveraging that MC and having somebody in the chat, being able to relay messages to the audience and to have access to the back channel with your speakers, it really is that person to hold the glue and to help you get things done. You still have, and I still recommend, if possible, I mean, I know sometimes we work for associations or companies where we're a team of 1 or 2 and we have to wear all of the hats, but consider each of the functions. If you're focused on content and that becomes your focus, then that is your job. Then you can be the person that is in the speaker ready room when the platforms allow for a speaker ready room, or you're the one that's on the Slack channel talking to them, telling them it's time to turn on their camera and things like that. Have somebody who can monitor registration. Not all platforms tie to outside registrations that you're using. These are the types of things that you could start to look at. Who is managing the registration from the outside system and importing it into the next one? What about the fun factor? Who's in charge of engagement? Can we add community ambassador into the role to make sure that everyone feels like they're invited? To be fair, we have introverts and different personalities and different styles of learning happening. So let's be mindful of all of those things and how can we make it a wonderful experience for all who attend? And if it's possible, food and beverage is still technically a line item when it comes to event production, even for virtual events. What are we going to do during meal times and break times? Is that something we're going to account for in the budget? Are we going to talk about that? Are we going to provide meal vouchers or Uber Eats or skip the dishes vouchers so that everyone can order their meal in and stay at their desk for the event? Really start to think about how your team can come together. And if you don't have that team, and these are the partners that I feel that we often forget, when you look at your event, it was not only one person to produce it. You were hiring your AV company. You were hiring the venue. You were hiring that event marketing expert. All of those people are part of your dream team. Leverage them to know how you can translate this experience to virtual. I mean, your AV partners are your secret weapon when it comes to really understanding what they had originally planned on delivering on site and asking for their ideas. I mean, truth be told, they're creatives, just like us. And if we're not creative, because there is also nothing wrong with that, look to someone who that's their strength and have them work with you on making sure that experience is delivered to your expectations. There are exceptional content developers out there and content strategists who have a keen eye for making sure that your content is delivered in a way that can be consumed by all learning types. Look to those types of people and to the experience that you're looking to create. And also look at your audience. Also have them. They are part of the team as well. And number 9, determine your online audience price. This is actually my favorite comment to make, is that we deliver experiences and that experience costs money. Not all virtual events have to be free. And I will repeat that. Not all virtual events have to be free. Be mindful of the content that you're delivering and be mindful of what the experience it is you want to produce so that they understand what's available and that they understand what they're getting. Remember, it's a perceived value. Now that there is so much free content online and it's so noisy, be mindful of the experience that you're delivering and that you want to deliver. So for example, if you charge for your conference or your annual meeting, determine how the online presentations will be priced compared to the experience. What can you add to enhance the experience online to ensure that you're surprising and delighting and that you're over-delivering on what you're promised? And compare that and see what price tag that is. And there are many schools of thought. I mean, we hear it all the time and we see it all the time. It should be free or $49. How many events have we seen that are $49 as though that is the benchmark? I mean, I've seen it work well where the online registrations are actually covered by sponsorship. Can you have a sponsor cover the platform? That makes it available for free. When you see free, someone is still paying the price tag for the platform, for the work, and for also our time. So really have a look at that when you're just determining that price. And I've also seen medical conferences who charge the exact same price online as they do offline because they're delivering the same content. They're delivering content that gives them the same amount of CEUs that we don't want to discredit how much time is going into that. I understand we're not paying for venue and we're not paying for some of these other things like food and beverage sometimes, and we're not paying for the same amount of AV. But if we look at those cost savings and reallocate that budget, we can make sure that this experience is delivered bar none to our attendees and keep us happy and employed. And our last step is data, or data, depending on the accent. And you want to make sure you survey your audience. Understand, did they enjoy the experience? Ask them, did they enjoy attending online? Have a look and see at platforms nowadays are able to give us a lot more data and analytics and allow us to understand how long our attendees watched for. Was it behind the scenes? Did they keep it at the forefront? In some platforms, we can even see if it was the first screen or did they put it behind another screen. Determine what success looks like for you. Is success meeting the same number of attendees or increasing the number of attendees that you normally have in person in your virtual experience? Is it an increased number of registrations that are earlier versus last minute? Is it the number of attendees who actually came that have not attended a previous event? Have a look at what success could look like for you. Have you been able to save your event? For those who have translated and pivoted, I know we hate that word. It's also a curse word in my house. We can't say pivot. But for those of you who have been able to move your events online in a matter of weeks, some in a matter of days, kudos, kudos, kudos to you. And I really hope we are celebrating all wins, because that is something to be said for the audience, and use that to benchmark the data when you decide to create the next experience. Remember, you are in charge. You're the planner. Use that to make sure that we're looking at things from a different perspective. What worked? What didn't work? Use what will benefit you in moving that experience forward. Now, there's lots of resources out there, and I actually haven't named everybody on there. So, we have the Digital Experience Institute, who offers the DES. We also have the MPI Hybrid Meeting Solutions that is out there. We also have AV suppliers, like I mentioned before, and our event tech partners. The Eventpreneur Club is also here for you as a resource. Another resource is the Event Leadership Institute. You can also look at exactly YYZ Event Profs is also another great resource. And even the BizBash teams and Event Manager blog, everyone is having the same conversation. So don't hesitate to get in there and ask those questions. And speaking of questions, any questions? You can go ahead and type those in the chat. Thank you so much for attending. I see a few are typing in the questions. Too many questions. Ooh, a success story of surprise and delight moments. Let me think. I was going to say surprise and delight. I feel like we've been able to do that a lot more in person because our hybrid option wasn't always the same. But surprise and delight now has been very cool giveaways. Something that's not the same run of the mill. Actually, I will say one surprise and delight. We did an in-person event, and we actually had a draw for those who completed the surveys, because we always ask for surveys. And those who completed the surveys ended up going into a draw for a private dinner with the speaker. It was in person, and a chef came and prepared it, but it was something that surprised and delighted. But it also made for great Instagrammable shares and stories and things like that came out of there. Tips on resources to train speakers. There are actually a lot of cheat sheets out there. I do have one that has very generic information of what you can share with your speakers. I have seen speaker training come from various platforms. That's, I don't want to say overkill, but it can definitely be like a 60-minute webinar on how to present. One of my favorite speaker training tips, when budget allows, is to have a speaker trainer actually deliver your training to them. So they're able to, especially if you're in a field where your experts are your speakers, where they're not trained speakers or your trained keynotes, having them work with a speaker coach who resonates with you and shares what your event focus is very helpful. You can always do it in a sense where it's where it meets your expectations and still helps them to weave in the different things that you need them to know. Let's see. Any tips on how to pitch to sponsor for online events? To be fair, what I have found helpful from an online perspective is to share what the experience is for them when it's pitching to a sponsor. We can no longer say it's like the gold, silver, bronze tiered method. I like to work with the speakers and say, let's come up with an experience or come up with an activation that works for both, so that we're not logo souping everywhere or offering a dollar value for registration numbers or a banner ad. There's nothing wrong with banner ads. We can still do those types of things virtually. We can still do those types of virtual ads and things like that. So so just be mindful of that. I see psav.com, the Event Intelligence Professional Edge, is the speaker training content. Have a look at that. That's definitely a great resource as well to share. I have actually seen other sponsor activations work well in the sense where they let them choose their own adventure, and they come to you, the event producer, with the idea so that they can showcase their product service in the best of their own abilities. So the good thing with being online is we are able to do more polished videos and sharing of that nature, which is kind of cool, so that we can use that as a sponsor opportunity. So for hybrid events, should guests all have access to same experiences, or can virtual guests have some that are special just for them due to not being on site for physical experience? That actually is a great question. And to be fair, that is actually one of the ways we did surprise and delight, and that we actually had a different speaker online for the virtual attendees for one of our events that was not in person. And it allowed them to have sort of like a private experience for them as well. I think that is totally up to the decision of the producers and what experience you're looking to create. But there's definitely nothing wrong with having something special or VIP for each of the different audiences. It's definitely a great way to add value to both sides. Ideas on how to incorporate food and beverage experience that's part of a live event into a virtual event. So some of the cool things that we're starting to see are chef-led F&B experiences. I know one of our Eventpreneur Club members talked about beer and food with one of his clients, and he literally sent beer from one of the local breweries and a gift certificate for Uber Eats, and that was the experience that they created. But we're also starting to see really high-end curated culinary experiences being done, in that we're seeing dinners for 8 or 10, whatever the chef decides to do. And the chef is either pre-preparing the box of food that they need and sending it to them, or doing a cooking demo and telling them what to shop for. Or we're also seeing chef experiences where you would do individual culinary experiences where they videotape them preparing the dish, and then they send it to them. And then while they're having their dinner, they're able to walk them through kind of the experience that went into it that made it happen. And there's a lot of fun ways that we can start to play with our F&B budgets. The only difference, obviously, is time, comfort, and shipment, and all of those things that come in with the food delivery. If delivering a free digital event, what are the top trends you're seeing that would help us differentiate ourselves from the next free program and help drive participation? If we look back at like our unique value propositions, I'd like to tie that to event marketing. Like, we have a lot of event marketing gurus who are able to help us to stand out. What can we do differently? If everyone, which they are, everyone is also pitching with the same style, the same images, why not try a different style of video that disrupts? I'm starting to see more actual disruptive style videos being produced that aren't so polished, but that are coming from the speakers that are saying, you know what, you need to come to our event because we are that much cooler. That camaraderie, and also using your audience and leveraging your speakers to say why you're different from the next program. I know that's a challenge that we're all currently facing. And again, I guess that can come back to the surprise and delight factor. What else can you add to your program that makes it different? Crowdsourcing, I would say that actually will be a trend that will take off, where we're using apps, and you can think of things like Snowball or some of the other cool apps out there to help you gain momentum and really build that profile online, because everybody is there. So how can we do it differently? Definitely have a virtual dress rehearsal. Before the event, you want to make sure that the camera feed works well, that the lighting works well, all of those types of things. It's definitely important to do some of those things. Some sponsors want you to say, here's what we can offer. And some sponsors want to be involved and customize the experience of their activation. Absolutely. I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying this is how we can activate your ideas. Have a look at their brand values and see if those match those of the event and come up with some ideas that could help. I've seen an online event with a specially priced VIP room, wine tasting with each purchasing wine in advance. I'm not part of it, but I do wonder how that might go over. There is a planner here based in Toronto who actually does do private wine tastings and pairings. They have had rave reviews for that. And I know the wineries, some wineries I've seen have also pivoted to that and offer it as an option. Wine seems to be the theme. Wine activities from certain local restaurants with tasting items and delivered to their homes in advance. Absolutely. And then they participate in the live stream. I mean, I know we've done it ourselves, even just as a group of friends, to say Friday takeout night. Local restaurant is open. Let's get our Thai fighter and go from there. So, I mean, that's also an option. So I want to be mindful of everybody's time. We do have 3 minutes left. So new services as Breakout Session. Do you notice a trend in preference for package price or hourly? A Breakout Session. Jillian, do you mind elaborating a little bit more on that question? Do you notice a trend in preference for package price or hourly? Are you looking at that from a business owner perspective? You're all very welcome for the tips. From a business owner perspective. To be fair, that is it's completely up to you. I know there's a lot of planners in the school of thought where package pricing is most favorable and pricing yourself as the consultant. Linda, I can definitely share the slides after as well. Okay. Let's see. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time. I will send an email out after this webinar with the recording, and then I'll also give you my contact details so that you can reach out. I look forward to connecting with all of you soon. Again, I'm Mahogany Jones, and if I can be of service to you, please don't hesitate to reach out.